Mary Criss, and I am a Sherman Park resident. I've lived here for 35 years, and I went to UWM.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Okay.
Even if I turn this way, right?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, very good.
That should be fine.
I'm just
Are we,
gonna sit. Yeah, I started the recording. So you can just go.
You can just pull up that chair if you like.
Thank you.
okay, so we begin with this opening script here. So, hello, today is June 13th, 2018, and it is now 9:54 a.m. My name is Kostin Tiksinski, and my partner is Bella Beyer. And we're both from UWM. I'm a master's student in urban studies, and Bella is an undergraduate in architectural and urban planning. And we are conducting an oral history interview of Mary Criss at 3134 North 45th Street. Got that right. The interview will take about an hour. We're very thankful for your time.
You're very
and
welcome.
Your willingness to do this. And what we'll be asking is we want to talk about the physical and social character of your neighborhood and your interaction with Sherman Park. And then the conversation will just evolve from some of our starting points. And before we start, we want to just collect some ambient noise, the noise that's happening in this house right now. So we're just going to pause for about 20 seconds.
Okay.
Just capture whatever sounds maybe. Okay. So in the last part is we'd also like to confirm we have rights and responsibilities forms here. So this is consent forms. The first part of the consent form is that we will be able to, is just that you're consenting to have this interview be shared in our library database, and that we are collecting your interview, and that it will be public. At any time you can redact anything that you say, any portion of this interview, even retrospectively in a month if you decide, I don't want that out there. You can just let us know, and we'll clear it from whatever public domain that it has entered. And then the second part of the rights and responsibilities is permission to use video or photo recordings. So that was the photo that we took. And so that, again, at any point you're free to tell us you don't want that, you just want that cleared from any public records.
It's important to note that your name will be used with the interview too.
That's fine.
Because it's an oral history. Part of it is, it's the personal aspect of using your name.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
So far, everything's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can read through that as well. Give her one of the copies.
And there's that. And then if you would not mind, sign it right now or at the end.
Right now.
Right now.
Yeah, just
Okay.
make sure before we left any information.
And go over there's
So I have to print my name, and then
Yeah, sorry, my signature lines get kind of messed up. So you can print there and then sign on the other side.
okay.
And then we'll sign it as well.
Okay. There you go.
okay, thank you. And then again on
That's us.
that's us. And then so again just on this form here, this is the one. So if you can print your name there and then
Just sign on the same.
yeah, just sign there and then the date of the
Okay, so sign right here.
yes.
Today's date is 6/13/18. There you go.
Thank you. And the last thing that we will I want to talk about risks and benefits. There are the risks we consider minimal. It's just that your name will be in
That's fine.
public space. As far as benefits, we are not offering any benefits other than we are extending the research and knowledge of Sherman Park. And so that's that.
That's a
And I
benefit
believe-
all on its lonesome. That's a benefit.
I believe we hit everything. Am I right? Okay. So then we'll get started.
Okay.
And so, to begin here, can you introduce yourself and just give us a brief introduction
Okay.
of who you are and
Okay.
your interaction with the neighborhood?
Okay. My name is Mary Criss. My husband, James Criss, and I have lived in the Sherman Park area for 35 years. We've raised both of our children here, and I went to UWM, and I graduated in, at that time it was medical technology, but now it's clinical laboratory science. And I'm retired. For the last part of my career, I worked at St. Joe's right here in Sherman Park. So now that I'm retired, everything Sherman Park is of value to me. I will do whatever I can to make sure that Sherman Park is vibrant. We want to restore the vitality. We want to keep St. Joe's an active, viable presence in our neighborhood. And that's my intro.
You mentioned you moved here 35 years ago with your husband at that time. And where were you before, and what brought you to Sherman Park?
Where were we before? I was a student at UWM, and we lived on the east side on Oakland. And so I graduated from medical technology. I had taken a job, worked a few years. We had our daughter, she's our second child, in 1983. And we already had a son that was 7 years old. So we decided it was just time to buy a house. We lived in an apartment all the while I was going to school and when I did my internship on the east side. And when our family started expanding, we thought it was time to buy a house. And at that time, Sherman Park was just the most beautiful place I'd ever seen. I loved the woodwork. I loved the homes. And that's what brought us here.
Okay, awesome. And so, your childhood. What are your memories of your childhood? Where did you grow up? You know, if you could talk a bit about your first, maybe some significant memories growing up, and what led you to UWM.
All right, so now that's a long story, or that's a different story. I am not a native Wisconsinite. I am from Louisiana, the bayous of Louisiana. I married this most fantastic man, my husband, and I met him in Louisiana many, many years ago after I went to Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. After I met this wonderful man that's from Wisconsin, that's from Milwaukee, we got married, and I moved to Wisconsin. And that was back in 1975.
So were you in college at that time?
I was in college at that time. I was a sophomore in college at Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I came here and finished my degree at UWM.
Okay. And so he was from Milwaukee.
He is from Milwaukee, yes.
He was down.
His grandparents at that time lived on the farm next to my grandparents' farm, and that's how I met him.
Okay. And tell us his name again.
His name is James Criss. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And could you tell us a bit about him? He's not here to represent himself, but I'm sure.
No, he's not here to represent himself because we have the biggest Rottweiler in the world, and he didn't want the dog to interfere, so he would have been in his kennel, but he would have been barking wildly. So James decided to take him on a walk. James is very quiet gentleman. I think James went to school. He graduated from Boys Tech, wherever that is. It was an all-boys school. He retired as a sergeant at the sheriff's department. And so he did that for a number of years. I think about 20-some years. He worked in various capacities as an instructor at the academy, which he totally loved. And then he worked as a regular sergeant in the jail for 20, 25 years.
Okay. I want to transition a bit into how you came to be in this space, this house. Can you tell us about when you came searching for a home in Sherman Park, what made you, how did you come to live in this space?
Now, my supervisor, at my very first job right out of college, my supervisor lives in this area. She lives right up the street there on 51st Street. And I had gone to her house, and I'm like, whoa. And I looked around the neighborhood. This is really nice. So like I said, when our family started increasing, we just started looking for homes. And we came to this one. Now, at that time, I just finished school, and my husband was paying my tuition, so we didn't have a bit of money, nothing. So we looked at this house, and I'm like, when we were on the east side, we didn't have a stove, we didn't have a refrigerator, we didn't have those things. We walked into this home, and I love the woodwork. We went into the kitchen. There's a built-in stove, built-in oven. There's the range, and there's the refrigerator. We went downstairs. There's an extra lovely bathroom, and we just said, this is our home. This is it. So everything kind of fell in place.
Okay. And as opposed to other, were there other prospects that were in your mind as far as other places to live?
No, Sherman Park, because like I said, my supervisor, and I just totally adored her, and I still do, lived in this area, and I had been in this area, and this is where I wanted to be. This is where I wanted to be. It was a fantastic area at that time. A lot of homeowners. The homes were just, the lawns were just meticulous and immaculate, and this is just where I wanted to be. Well, since that time, of course, the neighborhood has devolved.
Mm-hmm. And when you first got here, when you first moved to Sherman Park, how did you get involved, or what were some of the first things where you started engaging in community activities?
Well, I'll tell you, I did not. Like I said, I was a clinical laboratory scientist. That work is intensive. It was really hard. Science is not my forte, but when I was in college, my professor said, oh, you should take this route. Go into the sciences. You're really good. Well, just because you're good at something doesn't mean that you should do that for your livelihood. So keeping up with the latest medical technologies, I had to really focus. I didn't get involved in community action until November 9th, 2016. That was a very remarkable date in my life that changed everything in my life, that made me want to get involved in politics, in social justice, in the community, in anything that I could do to make Sherman Park, Milwaukee, Wisconsin at large, to make it a better place to live. November 9th, 2016, if I can say this, was the day that Donald Trump was elected president.
Okay, I was wondering what the specific date was. But tell us more about that. Tell us more about, because it sounds like that was obviously very significant.
It was very significant.
Yeah.
It was very significant. I was crushed. And instead of being a person, and I knew that I was at the end of my career as a laboratory scientist. I knew that. And I said, I didn't want to be the kind of individual that sits in front of the TV and cusses at the TV and just do nothing. I wanted to be involved. So before I retired, I said, well, what can I do to prepare myself for advocacy, political and social justice involvement? So I got online and I looked through here in Wisconsin, especially Madison, for programs that could equip me and prepare me to be an advocate, to be an activist, to be a leader in this community. And I found Wisconsin's Women's Network Policy Institute. I read their credentials, and this is a nonprofit organization that is involved in the care and the help for Wisconsin women and girls. It teaches you how to advocate. It teaches you about policy. It teaches you how to engage with legislators, and I said, this is what I want to do. Because at some point in my life, I'm 63 years old, but at some point, I would love to run for state assembly here in Wisconsin. So went to that program, started November 2017. It was a 4-month program, very, very intensive, hands-on program. You got to go to the Capitol to speak with legislators about the issue that was given to us. Each group had an issue. Well, let me just roll this back. This program is offered to women all across Wisconsin. So there were like hundreds and hundreds of women that applied. And the WWN, Wisconsin's Women's Network, would only select 25 women. So I'm thinking, man, I'm retired. I'm an old chick. They're new ladies, new, young, fresh blood. I can't possibly. But I applied anyway. But to make my presence known, they had an equality day, a women's equality day program. And I said, I'm going to hop in my car. I'm going to drive up there, check them out, let them check me out if they will, and let them know that I am interested in learning everything that you have to teach about policymaking, advocacy, legislating. So this was in August. I drove up, but I let them know in advance I was coming. And so they had a name tag, yada, yada, yada. I'm sorry about that. So I drove up, I listened to the class before me, the representatives that they had speaking about issues, disability issues, just a lot of issues. And they had 5 representatives talking, and I was so moved by what these graduates were saying. And I could see the passion, the excitement, and they were just gung-ho and ready to go to get out and change the world. And I said, I want to be that. I want to go through this program, and that's what I did. Now, how does this all relate to Sherman Park? Graduation, February, from the Wisconsin's Women's Network Policy Institute was February 10th, 2017. No, 2018, this year, 2018. Right before I had finished the course, perfect, enjoyed it, met the most wonderful people from all over Wisconsin. We just bonded. We're a sisterhood now. However, but at that same time, something was happening in Milwaukee. In the Sherman Park neighborhood, I got this on my email. In the Sherman Park neighborhood on 35th and Capitol, there is or was a bar called a nightclub, Tattoo. And Tattoo was going to incorporate a strip club. And they wanted people from the community to join them at the Common Council meeting for licensing for this nightclub, March 27th. I read that and I'm like, that's it. I'm hot off the press. I just graduated. I want to test what I learned. I'm going to be there. Any other time I would have said, oh, well, I hope they win and gone about my business. But because I had learned, I had the knowledge, the skills, everything that I needed in order to deal with this issue, because that's what we learned. I went and we were able to get 35 plus residents that went, because we did not want a strip club in our neighborhood. We did not want that bar in our neighborhood because it was noisy. Though it's not close to me, it's still Sherman Park, 35th and Capitol. Very noisy, trashy, vandalism. We didn't want it. And the odds were really against us. Let me back up. We did this through an organization that I joined, Common Ground of Southeastern Wisconsin. Common Ground is a nonprofit, nonpartisan political group that it's all over here, but here in southeastern Wisconsin, it focuses on social justice. So through this group, they helped us to speak about our issues, why we did not want this, and it seems as though the odds were against us. But our alderman, Khalif Rainey, please remember his name. He was dynamic. He voted against it at the licensing committee, and then we took it before the entire Common Council. It was voted against. Tattoo appealed, and the court says, no, we're shutting you down. And that's because people got together, one voice. The outcry was loud. People organized. We didn't want it, and that's where the power is. When people unite around a common issue, let your legislators know that we will have this or we won't have this, and the power is with the people, and that energizes me. That excites me.
What does it take to gather the support? So when you lead something like that, lead that resistance, what did it take to gather the
Okay, like I said, I am now a part of Common Ground of Southeastern Wisconsin. So they are the group here that works, especially I belong to SPAN, and this is an offshoot of Common Ground. SPAN is Sherman Park Action Network. So under the umbrella of Common Ground, I joined SPAN. And within that organization, we were able to organize, to bring people together through this organization because they know what to do. I'm a newbie. I'm learning. They know what to do. We were able to bring people together around this issue and get them down to the city council to stop that license from being, to revoke that license. That's how we did that. We just, through email, we just got the word out through meetings, and people really, the citizens in Sherman Park really did not want that in our neighborhood. Our neighborhood is already vulnerable, and something like that would have just not been the right thing to do. We were afraid of sex trafficking. We did not want that type of de-establishment in our community, and people just gathered and rallied around that cause.
So one of the themes that we're investigating in these interviews is the idea of care, and obviously that's a broad term, but looking into how residents care for their neighborhood and also why. So kind of that can be either philosophical or however you want to answer that. But when you're talking about these resistance movements that you started now,
Well, I didn't necessarily. I didn't start them.
Yes.
I just got involved and with Common Ground, and it was already going on before I joined. I just became active, very active. So,
can you tell us what drove you? Like, what's that personal drive? What's that? Why do you care? Can you talk about? I know that's.
oh, that's a big one. Why do I care? Well, let's start with my neighborhood. I care about my neighborhood because I don't want the neighborhood to be run down. I don't want to see that. I think on this block, and we're about to start a block watch, and I'll probably lead that up with the help of Camille Mays and her organization. I am adamant because we have renters in the neighborhood. I am totally adamant about taking care of your lawn, whether you rent, whether you own, and I make it known. I don't think some of the neighbors, especially the renters, they don't particularly care for me because I let them know this is where we live. We want our neighborhood to be aesthetically pleasing. We want people to be able to get along in the neighborhood. We don't want excessive amounts of noise. And I just make that known to the neighbors. And pick up your garbage. Don't let your grandkids walk on the lawn right across the street. The guy owns the house, and there were a group of relatives, friends, or whatever on the front porch. So the little kids were playing football or whatever from his house down two doors down, running across the grass. And I'm like, okay, what are we going to do about this? So I went out and I introduced myself. I said, I'm Mary Criss. I am a member of the Sherman Park Action Network, and I told them what that was and how we care about our property. And one of the young ladies says, she was a teenager, well, my uncle owns this, so we can run on our grass, we can do what we like. And I said, thank you, young lady. Well, they're not going to do that because I am now in the process of seeing what actions I can take legally to protect, I don't care if you own it, to protect the properties in this neighborhood. So that's where I am now. I would say that the neighbors, like these neighbors right next door, they're renters, and we have a good rapport now. When they first moved in, well, no, but after I introduced myself and made it clear that this is our neighborhood. I've been here for 35 years. I ain't going nowhere. This is where I live, and I want this to be the best possible neighborhood that it can be. They were a little rowdy at first, but now they've calmed down and they're following along, and I'm really pleased to see that. And we have a rapport now, and I'm grateful for that.
And this was a theme that we talked about in our last interview yesterday with a couple residents. This kind of how do you as renters and homeowners, that relationship, and sometimes there are different, there's less of a dedication there, or I don't want to assume that, but sometimes with renters there's less of a dedication to the neighborhood because you're transient, or you're moving on. It's not your space. So how do you view all that? And
how do I view that? It really because I know the owner. The owner lived here before she got married. She gave us her number. I mean, we had a fantastic rapport with Jennifer. She gave us her number. She says, if I'm renting the house out now, I know, Mary, I know how you and James are about the neighborhood, especially about the upkeep of the neighborhood. If you have any problems, give me a call. So initially, when the folks next door moved in, the renters, we did have problems. I talked to them at first, and I guess they thought I was just whistling Dixie, or I don't know what they thought, but I gave Jennifer a call. Jennifer got on it, and now these folks take care of Jennifer's property. They see that James and I, when there's trash, we pick up the trash. They're beginning now to follow suit. They would have neighbors or relatives that would come over, just throw trash on the ground, and I went over. I said, "This is totally unacceptable. Could you please have your visitors not desecrate the neighborhood?" And the mom next door, or the grandma, was very compliant, and she says, "We will. I'll take care of this." So that's the dynamic between myself and these neighbors, and that's the dynamic that I want to have with everybody in the neighborhood. Not to be a bully, but to respect the neighborhood. Just show the neighborhood the respect that it deserves. That's all. Am I talking too much?
Not at all.
Oh, all right.
This is your interview.
All right.
Yeah. Trying to reframe here. What are your favorite things about this community?
I love the old homes. I love this beautiful woodwork. I love the wood and the stone. I love the hardwood floors. I just love the way Milwaukee bungalows look. I love the feel of it. We are redoing certain parts of the house, but I want it to look like it did in 1926. This house was built in 1926, the year that Marilyn Monroe was born. And I want to capture that feel, and I don't know, I just love the homes. I just love the way they look. I love the feel. I just love it.
Have you investigated the history of a lot of this neighborhood, this home, and how it would look in 1926, and that whole process of trying to keep the character?
Well, I didn't do extensive investigation, but I found out that it was built in 1926, and I went and got looked through books and went online to see how those homes looked, and we've kept our home. We haven't. A lot of my relatives, "Oh, that's so dated." Well, that's the look that I want. I want to keep this look. We have some window replacements to do. I want to keep that look. As you can see, before we bought this house, they took the stained glass out. Well, I'm in the process of getting the stained glass to look just like the stained glass on top there, or right over there. It's very minimal. It's nothing ostentatious, but I want that same look. So I'm working with a company to make glasses for these counters and for the fireplace and for that counter to look just like the one that was there in 1926.
How is your home evolved? You mentioned that you have multiple children.
Well, I have two. They're adults. I have a daughter that's 35. She's married and she lives in Silver Spring, Maryland. She is quite the activist, the advocate. She was director of marketing for the national NAACP in that area. Now she has another job. I forget the title because the name of it because she just moved, but she's director of development there. She went to Northwestern University. She's really, really into advocating for the right thing, for truth, for justice, for righteousness. So that's what she does. And we have a 43-year-old son he's 42. He lives with us. He's disabled. He's upstairs now, but he lives here with us. Mm-hmm. But they're adults. And I have one little cute grandbaby that lives out east.
How did your interaction with the neighborhood change as you brought children into the world? Do you understand my question? Yeah.
Well, when we moved into the neighborhood, there were a lot of older white people in the neighborhood. And the properties were beautiful, but then these people started dying off, and their kids started selling the homes. Is that okay?
Good. Sorry.
Okay. And their kids started selling the homes, so we saw the neighborhood just decline. And in 2007, when the housing market really took a dive, we just saw things that just weren't acceptable. People renting and moving in that did not care, and that really bothers me. That bothers me.
Why do you think, what allows certain people to, or how do you view, do you think everyone has the ability to care, or do you think that there are certain impediments to caring? That you have other things where you're unable to care, and so how do you
all right, good question, very good question. And I've talked to people about this. I am from the rural South. I was raised in abject poverty. My grandparents were sharecroppers. I grew up without running water, without any amenities, no bathroom. That's just how I grew up. But my grandparents, especially my grandma, taught us, all right, this is where we live. We will care about where we live. You will. She had a third grade education, bless her heart. I want you girls to go to school, to learn. I want you to have a better life than I have had. And even though she had a third grade education, she just ingrained that into us. I have 3 sisters, and we all have college degrees. A couple of my sisters have postgraduate degrees, and we made our grandma proud before she died. So she instilled in us the necessity to get the best education possible, to be good citizens, to take care of what you have, no matter if it's just a little, no matter if you're poor. That's just how I was raised in the South. Well, let's speed this up. I come here and I don't see that. And I'm thinking, but everybody has that mindset. Everybody was raised that way. No. Being 62 now, almost 63, everybody was not raised that way. I think that there are obstacles in the way of people caring, especially in a metropolitan area. I think there are a lot of things going on that prevent them from caring. Am I answering your question?
Yeah. What does that look like, though?
What does that look like?
What are those?
What is? I'll tell you.
What do you see those reasons being? Or factors, history.
I see it, and this is going to sound so stereotypical, and I don't mean for it to sound that way, but I had a grandma that taught me. I see that as children generationally not being taught to care, not being taught the value of an education, the value of wanting to be the best person that you can be. Case in point, there was a family that lived 2 doors down. They don't live here anymore. There was a little girl. House is very house full of women, all related. The grandma, the mother, the grandmother, the little 4-year-old child. Beautiful little child, and I just took an interest in her because I would see her playing, and I just took an interest in her. She reminded me of my own little granddaughter out east, and I got to know her mom, her grandma, and her great grandma, and there were days when I would see that this little one didn't go to school, and I would ask her, "Well, why didn't you go to school today?" "Well, I was up with my Nana, and I stayed up with her all night, and she told me what the Nana was doing, but I won't repeat that." And I said, "Okay, all right." Well, this happened a couple times too many, and I was talking to the little one, and her mom came out because I got to know the mom. The mom asked, she says, "I see that you really love my daughter. Would you mind being her godmother?" And I said, "Not at all. I love it. But with that comes responsibility. There may be things that I have to discuss with you." So one day, this little one was telling me about not going to school. And I talked to her mom. I said, "Listen, it is important that she gets the best education possible." And we talked along those lines, and I was talking to the little girl, and I was talking to her mom. She says, "Yes, Miss Mary, I understand." I said, "So this is what you need to do, sweetie. Make sure you get her to school every day. Give her a good meal at night. Do help her with her homework and things of that nature." Did that work out? No. The mom didn't take heed because the little girl ended up repeating the 1st grade. And it just broke my heart. And now they've moved out of the neighborhood. I don't hear from them anymore. I'm wondering whatever became of this little girl. Maybe one day I'll find out. But while she was here, I did what I could to instill education, values, living above your circumstances, living above the fray. But the mom didn't take hold of that, and so that's what happened. Did I answer that question for you?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe so. Can you talk about your current activism? What's next on the horizon? What are you working on?
What am I doing now? Well, with Common Ground, and within the span part of Common Ground, Sherman Park Action Network, a newly minted committee has been formed, and I am a member of that committee. Our goal, our job is to research and to advocate for St. Joe's to remain in this neighborhood, because St. Joe's is the anchor of this neighborhood. If that presence is not here, and if it's not a vibrant, vital presence, this neighborhood would just totally implode. It would implode. So what we're doing now, we're talking to alderman. I just met with my alderman, Khalif Rainey, last week Thursday, about the necessity of keeping St. Joe's a vital, vibrant focal point in this neighborhood. Many years ago when I came here, there were 10 inner city hospitals. Today there's only one, and that's St. Joseph's. And Ascension Healthcare wants to close it down. There was such an outcry from the community, they backed off for a year. And so we're going to work really hard with the medical community, some of my teammates have met with mental health organizations. We have a meeting that's coming up next Thursday. I will be joining that with a mental health organization. We're meeting with, like I said, aldermen. We will meet with the mayor at some point. But here's the big thing. D.A. Chisholm, the district attorney, John Chisholm, approached Common Ground because he wants St. Joe's here. He doesn't want it to go anywhere. He wants it here, and he's right on point because we're interested in St. Joe's providing the best primary care, surgical care, whatever kind of care, but we're also interested mainly in behavioral health care. Because in this socioeconomically depressed area, I mean, you have drug addiction, you have so many things going on mentally and emotionally, relationally, that a behavioral health care unit could take care of those things. So we want to incorporate that into St. Joe's to make sure that it stays in this neighborhood. So the DA approached our organization, gather your members, let's work together to see what we can do to keep St. Joe's here, plus get a mental and behavioral health unit here at St. Joe's. So that's what we're working on now. We're looking at models all across the country. We may go visit models. We're talking to people. We're talking to politicians. We're talking to behavioral health care providers. So we're doing that right now. So we're in the burgeoning phase of that right now. And it's really exciting. It's so exciting. Mm-hmm. For me, anyway.
So right now there's not a behavioral
No, there is not. Before I retired back in 2017, Ascension Healthcare had talked about because there is so much space there at St. Joe's. It's like a ghost town. So many units, CCU, critical care unit. They want to remove the surgical unit. So many units have just moved, and there's so much space there. So they were talking about bringing a mental health unit to the hospital, but somehow that fell through, and we don't know why. So we want to find out why it fell through. We want to talk to the big players of. We don't want to deal with the small fish. We want to talk with the big people at Ascension Healthcare. Bernie Sherry, the CEO. We want a meeting with him at some point. But before we do that, we have to do our research. We have to have all of our ducks in a row. We have to be able to speak with him intelligently so that we can, as best we can, persuade him of the need to keep St. Joe's here, plus have a mental health unit there. So that's where we are now.
Okay. That's your current project.
That's my current project. And it may take a couple years, but as long as I have breath, I want to work on that. Because like I said, this is my neighborhood. I worked at St. Joe's. I've seen the need. I've seen the ER people with no primary care, no health care, come through the ER to get those type of needs met. And I've seen people with real behavioral problems that are repeaters coming through. It just shouldn't be. There is a need for a behavioral health care unit here in this neighborhood. And that would address so many other problems. It would address economic problems. It would address educational problems. It would address criminal justice reform. It would just address so many issues that plague this neighborhood if we would just have the necessary medical needs met, plus mental health and behavioral health. So that's where I am with that.
It's exciting.
It is very exciting. Plus, I won't mention this because I won't mention her name, because Common Ground is nonpartisan, but I have spoken with one of the Democratic female gubernatorial candidates, and she is so on point. I brought the issue of Sherman Park to her attention, St. Joe's to her attention, and we have been in dialogue. And I am just so excited that she has captured this vision, and she is doing what she can to work on these things. That's all I have to say about that.
Let me What are your favorite places in the neighborhood, and why?
Well, my favorite places in the neighborhood, Martha's Hair Care and Beauty Salon. Sh Now I'm going all gray, but she used to dye my hair and she gives me a good cut, and I just love going there. And where else do I like to go? My barber shop. I'm going there now because I wear my hair like this. So I really love those places. I'll tell you one of my favorite places, Sherman Perk Coffee Shop, right on in that bend, Roosevelt and 51st, in that area. Cozy, friendly, homey. The coffee is fantastic. We can have meetings there. You can have political meetings, social gatherings. That is one of my favorite places, Sherman Perk. Love it.
Well, I want more transitioned into the end here.
Okay.
But I want to talk about what gives you hope. What gives you hope for the future and to keep this neighborhood vibrant and to keep things move things in a positive way?
What gives me hope is your being here. The fact that somewhere along the way, I met Camille Mays. She got to know me. She heard me speak at a function about St. Joe's and why it is so important to keep this hospital. And she approached me, and so we've developed a rapport. And the fact that she gave my name to you, that gives me hope that people can see that there are people in this area that are excited about our neighborhood, that care about it, that want to see it, that are interested in the revitalization of our neighborhood. And now that I've joined SPAN, I've met other people in the neighborhood with that same interest, with that same vision. That gives me hope. That gives me hope. And plus the fact that when I finished, or during my time at Wisconsin Women's Network Policy Institute, I got to meet legislators that care about the Sherman Park neighborhood right here, because they represent that. Talking to them, working with them, that gives me hope. And I think the last thing that really gives me hope is I want to be a part of that community. I want to be a part of the community that can make laws, that can amend laws, that can knock down laws, that block progress for healthcare, that block progress to economy, to education. I want to be a part of that. So I'm looking to apply to a group called Emerge Wisconsin, and they teach Democratic women how to campaign, how to win. So I'm looking to apply to that, and I hope I get selected, because I really want to make a difference on the local level, of course, and on the state level. I really want to do that, because I met so many women since November 9th, 2016, that have just thrown their hats in, that never would have cared about anything like this, but they're energized. So thank you, Donald Trump. We're energized. We're ready to go. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but I did.
I've heard that theme a lot of a lot of people, so it's interesting. Maybe the last question here. When you thinking about maybe people who are not familiar with the neighborhood or who have an impression of the neighborhood, is there anything that we didn't talk about in this interview, or anything that you just would like to be made heard or known?
In my profession, back in the 70s, when I was going to UWM, I was probably the only black person in clinical laboratory science. And over the years, down through the years, people do have a bad impression of the neighborhood. One of my very best friends, she's a clinical laboratory scientist too. She had no choice. She had to leave her other job for whatever reasons. But the only job that was open for her at that time, and she lives in Greenfield, was here in this neighborhood. Deathly afraid at first, just afraid. And most of the people at St. Joe's that I've worked with, they were just afraid to be here at first. Working with these ladies, I worked with them for 2 years before I retired. They said that they would not work any place else. They love the neighborhood. They love being able to take care of people that really need the help. My friend Mariana says, it's like a second home to me now. St. Joe's and being in this neighborhood, it's like a second home. I feel as though I'm giving back. I'm doing something for the most vulnerable people in society. So, and all of these are white ladies, and they see that and they feel good about themselves, and that makes me feel really happy about our neighborhood.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was just going to ask if you have any like significant stories or memories about the neighborhood, specific events that were really influential to you.
All right. August of 2016, I think, we had, oh boy, that was very significant. Was it a riot? Was it was it an incident? But it was catastrophic because that had never happened in our neighborhood before, where a young man was shot by a Milwaukee police officer, and people in the neighborhood were in an uproar. The gas station on Sherman and Burleigh was burned down. That was very, very significant. Yep. I'm sure you guys read about that in the paper back at that time. That had never happened in this neighborhood before, and I was afraid. The people that I worked with, people were just afraid, so afraid. Homeowners that have been here forever, everybody's talking about, we're leaving, and it was just awful. So I think that in and of itself drew people together to want to protect the neighborhood. So I think that was a driving force. That was a catalyst when that situation occurred, and people started really banding together and joining together.
Yeah, we've heard a lot about that.
Pardon?
Yeah, we've heard a lot about that.
Yes, and that was a catalyst, a significant catalyst. So, yeah, that.
Okay. Also, I want to ask, because this is such a nice home.
Okay.
If we could do, I don't know, maybe just a tour of this main living area, and we'll carry this around, and you can describe the different features.
Well, I don't want you to see the kitchen because that's a mess. We're about
Just do this area, maybe.
Okay.
Since we're in the middle, maybe you could just talk specifically about some of the items.
Well, I do want to show off my bathroom.
Okay.
All right.
So, take this.
So what really attracted me to these type of homes is this little area, this little foyer porch. I really like that, and I love the beauty of the woodwork. I love that. Where I come from, you don't see any of that, and it's just so fascinating to me. It's beautiful. I love the woodwork. I love the simple stained glass. In some homes, it's very ostentatious, but this is simple, and I can work with that. So I love the stained glass. I love the built-in cabinets here. It's a fake fireplace, but I love it because I love the wood. I don't know what do you call this? Crown molding or whatever. I love it. I just love it. And I love the built-in cabinets. And you see all the beautiful wood that's around. Just love it. And look at that. Isn't that pretty? Little flowers that were put there in 1926. And people were saying, why don't you just paint that white? No, I want to keep this as original as I possibly can. I don't know, it's like what is this like? I don't know what it's like. A frame. So you have these frames, and I can put little pictures here if I like. I just like the look just as it is. The white and the hardwood floors, I really like. Now let me show you my bathroom because we just did something that it may be a little different, but I'm so proud of it. This is my bathroom. So we just did this about 4 years ago. I love this thing, and I just think it fits with the home. I went and bought this picture. This is tree bark. So I went in the 3rd Ward. There was an artist there. I said, I want it, I want it, I want it. So that's tree bark. I went online, I found a little waste receptacle, this tree bark, and this. I just love the splashed paint. It's just a mirror, and it's just, they just threw paint there. I just love it. And that's my bathroom.
It's very pretty.
Thank you.
What is this? Is this the phone?
I don't know what that is.
I think this is for a phone.
Okay, I don't know, but we never put a phone there. We just sit junk there, like you see junk. But it's cute. It's something different, and I just love it.
Cool. I did want to ask this front room here. Was there originally doors on there?
They were there, yes, but they were taken away. And like I said, I'm in the process. Now that I'm retired, I can do this. I'm in the process of working with someone to put the glass back there and to get a stained glass door here. So that's where I am now as far as home projects are concerned.
Okay, cool. There's one more thing I wanted to ask. The light fixtures, the one in the dining room in here, were these here when you moved in?
No, I put these here.
Okay.
I put these here when I moved here.
They look antique.
Mm-hmm. That one is antique. I bought that at an antique shop. That one I got from some store, I don't know, but I wanted it to look antique because I want that feel. I want to keep that and capture that.
Okay. I think we're good, except we would like to take some photos of maybe just these front rooms, if that's okay.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay, and the outside of the house.
That's fine.
There's a closing thing.
Yeah. Maybe out here.
No. There you go.
Thank you for taking time to give us this interview. Your interview will add to our growing knowledge about this neighborhood. As we talked about that already. We already asked, is there anything that you would like to tell me or us that we may have not brought up in the interview? Anything else?
No, I think I talked a whole bunch. Yeah, but no. Thank you, though.
Okay, if you have any questions, please call our project director, Regis Sen. That's at 765-760-0218. We also have his address. So anyway, you want to get in contact with him about what we've done.
Okay.
And we will also there will be a couple exhibits.
No,
No?
just community reviews for the next 3 weeks. So we're based out of the Finney Library on Sherman and North. And for the next 3 Fridays, we have kind of an open house for community residents from noon to 4. So people can come in and learn more about the project and give their feedback about what we're doing.
All right.
And then also our final exhibit for the project is on July 21st, also at Finney Library.
Okay, very good.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the interview.
You're more than welcome, and thank you for interviewing me.